All right, ready to dig in. We're tackling a topic that seems to be everywhere these days: veganism. And get this, it's not just about salads and tofu anymore.
It's true. We're talking a complete lifestyle shift, and there's some really interesting science behind it all. You sent over this super comprehensive guide to plant-based nutrition, so should we dive into some of the most fascinating parts?
Absolutely. I've always thought of veganism as pretty strict, no meat, no dairy, all that.
You're on the right track. The main thing is cutting out all animal products. That means no more morning omelets, no cheesy pizza nights, even honey gets flagged.
Whoa, even honey. Now that's dedication. But before we get into the why, I'm kind of curious about the what. Like, what are people actually eating on a vegan diet?
Mm.
No offense to my salad-loving friends, but lettuce alone does not a meal make.
You'd be surprised. Think colorful fruits, veggies, legumes like lentils, chickpeas.
Hmm.
Those are packed with protein.
Okay, so it's not just rabbit food. What are some of the staples in a vegan pantry? I need specifics.
Well, you've got your quinoa, brown rice, and let's not forget nuts and seeds. Those are nutritional powerhouses. Plus, there's a whole world of plant-based meat alternatives now. Things like veggie burgers made from pea protein, tofu scrambles. There are even plant-based meatballs made with mushrooms and beets to get that meaty texture.
Plant-based meatballs. Okay, now those I have to try. But within the vegan world, are there like different approaches to what you eat?
Absolutely. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. You've got your whole food vegans who are all about those unprocessed foods in their natural state. Lots of fruits, veggies, whole grains, all straight from the source. Then there's the raw food approach where nothing's heated above 118 degrees Fahrenheit. It's all about preserving those delicate enzymes.
So that's more of a cold-pressed lifestyle then.
Yeah,
Lots of salads and smoothies.
exactly. But then you've also got what some call junk food veganism, where just because something has a vegan label doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy.
Ah, so that's where all those vegan cookies I've been seeing come in.
Exactly. Those can be highly processed and lack a lot of the nutrients you'd get from whole plant foods. And then there's the high-carb, low-fat approach. That one emphasizes healthy carbs, the ones you find in fruits, potatoes, rice, and starchy veggies.
Interesting. So lots of variety within the vegan spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's talk about the why now. It seems like everyone's talking about the health benefits of a vegan diet.
Mm-hmm.
What's the science behind all the hype?
Well, let's start with heart health. There was a study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association. It found that people who ate a vegan diet had a 75% lower risk of developing high blood pressure.
Wow, 75%. That's huge.
Yeah.
I always thought of heart health as being all about cholesterol, but it sounds like plant-based eating has a way bigger impact.
It really does. You see, plant-based diets are naturally low in saturated fat and cholesterol, which are big culprits in heart disease, but they can also help lower inflammation and improve blood flow. Those are both essential for a healthy cardiovascular system.
Hmm.
And speaking of feeling good, a vegan diet can be super beneficial for managing type 2 diabetes.
I knew there was a connection there, but I'd love to understand exactly how it works.
So picture this. Fiber acts like a sponge in your digestive system,
Okay, I'm picturing it.
and it slows down how fast sugar gets absorbed into your bloodstream so you avoid those energy spikes and crashes. Since plant-based diets are naturally high in fiber, they can be a big help in managing blood sugar levels.
Got it, like a natural regulator. I was really surprised by the link between a vegan diet and a reduced risk of cancer.
It is pretty amazing. One study found that vegans had a 15% lower risk of developing cancer in general. And for some types of cancer, like colon cancer, the risk was even lower, around 40%. It's probably because of the antioxidants in plant-based foods. All those colorful fruits, veggies, legumes, they're fighting cell damage.
So all those vibrant colors aren't just pretty to look at. They're actually working hard to keep us healthy.
Amazing. Now, I have to ask about digestion. I've heard that vegans tend to have, shall we say, a smoother experience in that department. Is there any truth to that? It's not just something people say. There's a lot of research on this. Fiber is the hero here again. It keeps things moving through the digestive tract, prevents constipation, and promotes a healthy gut microbiome.
Right, a happy gut, a happy life, as they say. So far, there seem to be so many potential benefits to going vegan. But before we all empty out the produce section at the grocery store, I think we need a dose of reality. What about these nutrient deficiencies I keep hearing about?
Well, it's true. When you cut out entire food groups, you need to make sure you're getting those essential nutrients from other sources.
Right, makes sense. So what are the big ones we need to watch out for? And how can we make sure we're covered?
One that comes up a lot is protein. The plant-based foods do have protein, it's just that animal-based proteins are considered complete proteins. They have all 9 essential amino acids that our bodies need but can't produce on their own.
So it's about getting enough of all the essential amino acids even on a plant-based diet.
Exactly. And the good news is it's completely doable. You just need to be smart about combining different plant-based protein sources throughout your day. Rice and beans, hummus and pita bread, lentil soup with some whole grain bread, things like that.
Got it. So it's about those delicious and nutritious combinations. What about other nutrients we should keep in mind?
Another big one, and probably the most important one for vegans to be aware of, is vitamin B12.
I've heard of that one. That's the one for energy, right?
It's important for energy, but it's crucial for a lot more than that. Vitamin B12, you need it for healthy nerve cells, red blood cell formation, even DNA synthesis.
Wow, okay, this is important stuff. And it's mainly found in, you guessed it, animal products.
Yep, you got it. And that's exactly why vitamin B12 deficiency is a real concern for vegans if they aren't careful.
Okay, so this is serious stuff. What's the solution?
The good news is it's totally preventable. Vegans can get B12 from fortified foods, things like plant-based milk, nutritional yeast, and some breakfast cereals.
So reading those labels is key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And sometimes a B12 supplement might be a good idea, especially for women who are pregnant or breastfeeding and older adults. But again, it's very manageable with a bit of planning.
Gotcha. So protein and B12, checked and double-checked. What else is on our nutrient checklist?
Iron is another big one.
Really? I thought leafy greens were full of iron.
They are, but the type of iron in plant-based foods, it's called non-heme iron, and our bodies don't absorb it as easily as the heme iron that's found in animal products.
So it's not just about how much you eat, it's about how much your body can actually use.
Exactly. If you're on a plant-based diet and you want to boost absorption, vitamin C is your new best friend. Try pairing iron-rich foods like lentils, spinach, tofu with things that are high in vitamin C. Citrus fruits, berries, things like that.
Okay, so a squeeze of lemon in my lentil soup is a good move.
Exactly. Just some simple tweaks.
I love it. It's like we're becoming nutrient detectives or something. Now, what about calcium? That's another one I've always associated with dairy.
Dairy is definitely a common source, but it's not the only way to get calcium at all. Lots of plant-based milks are fortified. Tofu can be a great source, especially the kind that's set with calcium sulfate. And leafy greens like kale and collard greens, those are full of calcium too.
Leafy greens again.
Oh,
They
that-
really are the overachievers of the nutrition world.
I know, right? And last but not least, we've got those healthy fats, specifically omega-3 fatty acids.
Ah, yes. Those are the ones that are supposed to be so good for our brains and our hearts. I know fish is a good source, but what about people who don't eat fish?
Don't worry, you can find omega-3s in plant-based sources too. Flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, those are all good ones. They're really easy to add to smoothies, oatmeal, things like that.
Okay, so that doesn't seem too hard to manage.
And if you're looking for a really potent dose, algae-based omega-3 supplements are becoming more and more popular.
Algae supplements. Now, that's definitely going on my list of things to learn more about.
Yeah, we might have to save that deep dive for another time. There's just so much to cover.
Agreed. But from what we've talked about today, it seems like a vegan diet, while it might seem restrictive at first, is totally possible to thrive on, as long as you're informed.
100%. Knowledge is power. The more you know about both the potential benefits and challenges, the better equipped you'll be to make choices that really work for you and your health goals.
All right, so we've busted some myths, explored a world of plant-based goodness, and armed ourselves with the knowledge to navigate those potential nutrient needs. But there's still so much more to uncover about this fascinating world of veganism.
You know, it's interesting how our conversation about nutrients really highlighted how much thought and planning goes into a vegan diet.
It really does. And it makes you realize that for a lot of people, it goes way beyond the food itself. Like, they're drawn to veganism for reasons that are much deeper than that.
Absolutely. It often comes down to this really deep sense of compassion, a real concern for animals.
It's like that aha moment when you realize that your food choices actually have this ripple effect on the world around you. And for a lot of people, those ripples, they extend to the animals that are, raised for food.
Exactly. For many vegans, their choice is deeply rooted in wanting to minimize harm, to promote a more humane way of treating animals.
Right, because unfortunately, our current food system, well, let's just say it's not always the kindest to animals.
It's definitely a complex issue. There are a lot of different perspectives on it. But for a lot of people, aligning their dietary choices with their ethical values, that's a really powerful motivator for choosing a vegan lifestyle.
Yeah, it's like putting your morals into action one bite at a time. And
Yeah.
that's where that whole factory farming thing comes in, right?
Exactly. Factory farms, which are designed for mass production of meat, dairy, eggs, they've come under a lot of scrutiny lately.
And it's not even just the physical conditions, but also the emotional well-being of the animals, which often gets overlooked.
That's right. The ethics of raising animals in confined spaces, often under really stressful conditions, it's a major concern for a lot of people. And it goes beyond factory farming, too.
Oh, absolutely. Even something like honey production, which seems so harmless, can raise some ethical questions.
Exactly. Some vegans would argue that harvesting honey actually disrupts the balance of bee colonies and can even end up harming the bees themselves.
It's amazing when you start to peel back those layers, and consider the whole journey our food takes. It's about so much more than what we see in the grocery store.
100%. And speaking of impact, maybe we can shift gears a bit from the ethical side of things to the environmental impact, because this is another area where plant-based eating can really make a difference.
Okay, so let's talk about that. How does choosing a veggie burger over a beef burger contribute to a healthier planet?
Well, the environmental impact of our food choices, it's complicated, but one thing's for sure, animal agriculture, especially on a large scale, it leaves a big footprint.
And by footprint, we're talking about greenhouse gas emissions, land use, water consumption, all of it, right?
All of that. Producing meat, especially beef, it takes so much more land, water, and energy compared to plant-based protein sources. Did you know that beef production actually needs about 10 times more land and water than producing the same amount of plant-based protein?
10 times. Wow, that is a huge difference.
It really shows you just how resource-intensive meat production can be. And it's not just the land and water. Livestock, especially cows, they produce a lot of methane, and methane is way more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide.
So what we eat directly impacts climate change. And choosing a plant-based meal, it actually can make a difference.
That's right. And while people are looking at more sustainable ways to raise animals for food, shifting towards more plant-based diets is becoming recognized as a key step in dealing with climate change.
It's kind of empowering when you think about it that we actually have the power to create a greener future, one plant-based meal at a time.
I love that. And here's another thing to think about. When we reduce how much we rely on animal agriculture, it has a big impact on deforestation and biodiversity loss.
Okay, I'm curious. How does a burger connect to rainforests being cut down?
It all comes back to land use. As the demand for meat goes up around the world, we see huge areas of forests, especially the Amazon, being cleared for grazing land, and also to grow feed crops for livestock.
It's like this chain reaction with consequences that reach so far.
Exactly. And as these forests disappear, so do all the plants and animals that live there. It's a major cause of biodiversity loss.
It is kind of overwhelming when you realize how interconnected everything is.
It is a lot to take in. But instead of focusing on the negatives, let's think about the positive side. By choosing more plant-based meals, even if it's just a couple of times a week, each of us can play a part in reducing our environmental impact.
It's those small individual actions, they add up to something so much bigger.
You got it. It's about making conscious choices. Choices that reflect what we believe in and help us move towards a healthier planet for everyone.
It sounds like veganism can really offer a more compassionate and sustainable way of life.
It definitely has that potential, but like with any lifestyle change, it has its own unique challenges and nuances.
Right, it's not always easy being green, or should I say plant-powered.
Mhm.
So what are some things people should consider if they're thinking about eating more plant-based meals?
That's a great question. One thing we haven't talked about yet is the social side of food. Food is such a big part of our social gatherings, cultural traditions. It even shapes our identities.
So true. It can be tough to navigate those social situations as a vegan, especially when you're first starting out. I've been that person at a barbecue, with my veggie burger, trying to explain why I don't want the potato salad because of the mayo.
Oh, I can only imagine. It can be tricky, but I think it's so important to remember that everyone's journey with food is personal, and there's no need to be preachy or judgmental.
Totally. Shaming someone into eating a veggie burger has never made it taste better.
Exactly. It's all about being open-minded, respecting different choices, and focusing on those shared values that bring us together, whatever they might be.
And who knows? Maybe your amazing vegan chili will spark someone's curiosity and open up a whole new world for them.
Now that's what I call food for thought.
Speaking of food for thought, I'm realizing that going vegan, or even just incorporating more plant-based meals, it's not as simple as just swapping out a regular burger for a Beyond Meat burger. It's about taking a closer look at our relationship with food, on a deeper level.
I couldn't agree more. It's about those ethical implications, understanding the environmental impact, appreciating the social and cultural importance of the choices we make about food.
Absolutely. Our plates are powerful. They can be a force for change. But where do we even begin? It can feel so overwhelming trying to make sense of it all.
It can be, yeah, I get that. But like with any big change, it's more about those small steps you take rather than going for like this perfect ideal.
Okay, that's good to hear. So instead of going full-on vegan overnight, what are some realistic baby steps towards a more plant-based life? Strategies that, actually work for people.
One that's really effective is Meatless Mondays. Just dedicating one day a week to trying out some plant-based meals, it can really make a difference.
I've heard of that. It definitely feels less intimidating than, a huge sudden change, like dipping your toes in the vegan pool before you do a cannonball.
Exactly. It's a fun way to experiment with recipes, new ingredients. You might even find that plant-based food can be just as satisfying. Maybe even more so.
I love that. Takes the pressure off. So we ease in with Meatless Mondays. What are some other ways to start small?
Another one, try giving your favorite dishes a vegan makeover.
Now you're speaking my language. So instead of giving up my beloved tacos, I can find creative ways to make them plant-based.
Exactly. Swap the ground beef for seasoned lentils, mushrooms. There's vegan sour cream, plant-based cheeses. Honestly, the options are pretty endless these days.
You're making me hungry just thinking about it. Meatless Mondays, veganizing my favorites. Okay, I'm taking notes. What else?
This one's pretty simple. Get to know your local farmer's market.
Ah, I see where you're going with this. Soak up all that amazing energy. Get inspired by fresh, seasonal produce. Maybe even chat with the farmers themselves. It's a whole experience.
Right. Plus, you're supporting local, which is always a plus. And honestly, sometimes that produce aisle at the grocery store can be, well, a little sad.
You're telling me. So what about those days when even thinking about cooking feels exhausting? I'm all for fresh produce and all, but we all have those days.
Oh, for sure. Those are the days for the convenient plant-based options. Prepped ingredients, meal kits, all that good stuff.
Okay, so I don't need to be a gourmet chef to make this work.
Yeah.
That's a relief.
Not at all. Just choose wisely. Look for those minimally processed options, things with ingredients you recognize. Oh, and this is a big one. Embrace meal planning.
Makes me think of that, saying failing to plan is planning to fail. Does that apply to plant-based eating too?
Absolutely. If you take a little time each week to plan out your meals, it can be such a game changer. No more last-minute scrambling. Plus, it really helps you make those mindful choices.
Because no one makes good decisions when they're hangry. Am I right?
You got that right. And here's a bonus tip. When you're planning, think about how you can use those leftovers for lunch or another dinner later.
Work smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Okay, meal planning check. What about the social side of all this? It seems like it could be hard, navigating a world that's still pretty meat-focused.
It can be, yeah. And that's why finding your tribe is so important.
You mean connecting with other people who are on this plant-based path, right?
Totally. Whether it's an online group, a local vegan meetup, or even just friends who are up for trying new things with you, having that shared experience can make a big difference.
Because at the end of the day, we're all just figuring things out, right? A little support goes a long way.
It really does. And remember, it's not about being perfect. This isn't about perfect vegan. It's about making choices, every meal, every snack, that feel good to you, that align with your own values.
Love that. It's a journey, not a race.
Yeah.
And hey, if you accidentally have a cookie that wasn't exactly on the approved list,
no worries. It happens. Don't beat yourself up. Every step towards a more plant-based lifestyle, no matter how small, it's still a step in the right direction.
Beautifully said. Well, to all our listeners out there, we've given you some knowledge, hopefully a little inspiration, maybe even a few new recipes to try. Now it's your turn. Go out there and create your own delicious adventure.
Enjoy every minute.
Until next time, happy eating.